Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of Cooking with Grief, the comedy podcast that is the audio equivalent of getting gently kicked in the crotch by an elderly woman with failing eyesight. It's definitely unusual, but could almost certainly be much worse. My name's Chris, and as ever, I'm joined by my mammalian co-host, the author of the book Gobnobblers, a Willy Wonka erotic novel. It's Chris!
Hello.
So here's how we demand the podcast works. Each of us, Chris and Chris, me being one of the Chris's, and Chris being the other of the Chris's, bring 2 topics that we've been reading about in the week, a kind of internet show and tell, before getting distracted by something silly and veering off piste faster than an Olympic ski jumper who suddenly realised that their entire career is completely pointless and bails at the last minute, much to the dismay of their corporate sponsors. So basically, we talk about things that we found interesting in the hope that you do too. So now we've done the introduction and falsely suggested the idea of a rigid format, we'll get going on our first topic. Chris, what have you got for us?
For my first topic, I'm going straight into an area we may have agreed to keep out of, which is politics. And admittedly, this is low-hanging fruit because I'm going to talk about Donald Trump. But apparently, he has a habit of tearing up papers, which he's legally required to keep. And so White House staff, who are on salaries of more than $60,000 a year, have to go around picking up bits of torn paper off the floor and taping them all back together, just so that they have a record of the various things that he's signed, disagreed with, whatever.
Doodled on.
Yeah, apparently he has, and in a way I sort of empathise with him here, because I also, when you're going through the post or something and you like going through stuff and you like just tear stuff up out of habit, only I'm not tearing up legal documents that, pertain to the United States of America.
Yeah, you're not, as far as I'm aware, leader of the free world.
No. Well, I was reading, The Independent, which is I know it's online only now, but it's still, respected, former newspaper and journalistic outpost. And there is an article, or an opinion piece in it, saying that Jaden Smith should be President of the United States, as in Will Smith's kind of strange son. And at first I thought it was satire. I was like, oh yeah, okay, here we go. Jaden Smith, president, he's the guy who says, how do we have eyes if we can't see, or random crap like that. And then I read it, and it was serious. And I was just like, what the fuck has happened to the world? Where, because now there is never going back to the pre-Trump era. We now have genuine political debates about whether Oprah Winfrey or Jaden Smith should run against Donald Trump.
Yeah, the Rock is another name that gets mentioned.
The Rock, yeah. Although I would like President The Rock. Yeah. Just because I hope that's what they'd refer him to.
Yeah, as long as the is always in there.
Yeah. It's like Mr. The Rock.
Mr. President The Rock.
Yeah, I'd enjoy that. I mean, I know that's not his legal name. He doesn't even use that in films anymore, but I'd like to think he'd bring it back if he ever became president.
Yeah, if it comes in and he, if he wins, then he has to legally change his name.
And I hope every press conference would be like his old SmackDown days, where it'd be like, I'm going to tell Kim Jong-un to take that nuclear missile, turn it sideways, and stick it up his candy ass. Or people just ask him stuff and he just goes, it doesn't matter what you think. You know what, I want President The Rock.
Yeah, you've completely changed your mind. All it took was a few bad impressions. I know what you mean though.
That's won me over.
Call me old-fashioned, but I sort of want politicians...
You're old-fashioned.
I am, in very few regards. But I sort of want politicians to have been politicians all their lives. I don't, I think there is definitely something to be said for...
Not necessarily mean, I don't think they need to have been politicians all their life. No, in fact, I think in a lot of cases it's better if they did something else first.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, I do think you need to, cut your teeth on a few smaller things before running, an entire nation. Be mayor of a city
run
or
for local
governor
election,
of a state.
Yeah,
and then be, go for president, or, in Britain case, MP first, which you kind of have to be prime minister at least. Be an MP first. But yeah, just the fact that obviously because the American presidency is sort of open to anybody. I think the only conditions are you have to be born in the United States and be over a certain age. I can't remember what it is, maybe like 45 or something.
It doesn't bode well for Jaden Smith then.
No. Because obviously Donald Trump is famous for his tweets. And, once again, you're not going to put the genie back in the bottle. So, let's see. These are some of the gems that might come out, which have come out of Jaden Smith's mouth or fingers. Things we might get subjected to later. Here's one. When you think about an apple, you also think about the opposite of an apple. I presume that's oranges. I don't know what the opposite of an apple is.
Or an anti-apple, which is like a nebulous black hole of fruit. Anti-fruit. What's the opposite of fruit? A Big Mac.
Anti-fruit.
It's a Big Mac black hole.
If everybody in the world dropped out of school, we would have a much more intelligent society. Presumably, he's basing that on all these. And it's one of those things where it's like, have you ever seen like 90% of the fucking world?
Yeah.
Or it's one of those really great quotes you can only say when you're born into like insane privilege that you don't even notice.
Yeah. Have you ever
found that throughout most of history and throughout most of the world, people aren't in school. People literally drop out of school at like 8 so they can go work the fields or something. What the fuck are you talking about?
Have you ever left Beverly Hills? No, then this is the Philosopher King for you. Yeah, never mind the fact that, the education of, girls and young women around the world is one of the most proven ways to improve equality. So are we at that sweet spot in life when we can hate both everyone older than us and everyone younger for being younger?
Yeah. I feel like we've always been like that, though.
Yeah, we have been full of rage, quite middle-class rage, admittedly, but...
Mm-hmm. So, these are just insane ramblings. 23rd of March, 2013, most trees are blue. 1st of May, 2013, how can mirrors be real if our eyes aren't real?
It's like he's putting out suggestions for, like, a really wacky... fortune cookie company he's gonna start up.
Here we go. There is no nutrients in our food anymore, or in our soil, and then it gets capitals, or in our water. I mean, has he tested the soil? Does he know water usually doesn't have nutrients?
So you're saying this is the future leader of...
This is the future of the free world. Apparently, according to him on the 19th of September 2014, he builds pyramids constantly. I don't believe him. I'm going to go out on a limb there and say that's a lie.
That's just a euphemism for taking a tricky shit. I mean, I can't say I'm particularly familiar with Jaden Smith. I'm not particularly familiar with Will Smith either because my pop culture reference is non-existent. But, I mean, I am eternally grateful that I did not have the ability to broadcast my every pointless thought at during my teenage years. Luckily, I kept them, bound to a series of school notebooks, which I ceremoniously burnt, having read them back and going, God, I was a real dick. But I guess, the young generation just have to be fine with the fact that every stupid thing they ever tweeted is just out there for all time.
Yeah, but it does give to some of these gems, because I just want to... One last quote.
Yeah. I've got more.
3rd of November 2014. I don't want you guys to think because I was born in America that I speak and abide by English grammar. I speak Jaden indefinitely. What the fuck? I'm glad that one's there forever because he needs to be constantly reminded that he is an idiot.
But if you were coddled in a uber-rich family with no real awareness of the outside world, wouldn't you be an idiot?
Oh, I am an idiot, and I didn't even need all that.
I mean...
I'm glad, I don't know, I've always been a sort of...
misanthrope.
I've never been one for putting statuses and stuff on Facebook, even when I was 18, but I'm still quite glad I grew up. I was already a teenager and all that by the time these things were even introduced, because otherwise I wouldn't want all my stupid shit to be brought up for the rest of the time.
I don't know, I think the world definitely needed to read your take on quoting Bowling for Soup lyrics at the age of 14.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a cavalcade of pointless noise.
So, and speaking of which, please subscribe to our podcast.
You've gone in a lot harder on Jaden Smith than you have Donald Trump.
I don't know, I guess I've been beaten into submission by the reality of Donald Trump. It's more just the sheer fact that there's genuinely, like, opinion pieces now going on. Like, it's been like, oh, well, we've had one celebrity president. You know what? Fuck it. Let's just troll the internet and see who we shall make our new king based on absolutely no experience, talent, or anything other than, yeah, this guy says funny things from time to time.
Could this small rock called Keith be the next great hope? But I mean, if we just have to accept that the internet is a baffling thunderstorm of pointless nonsense, do we not also have to accept that part of life going forward is just ignoring the vast majority of it?
I think you have to.
Yeah.
I don't know. Although sometimes it seems like real life's getting more like the internet.
Contribute to it with a pointless podcast.
Exactly. We should just call this shouting into the void. That's essentially what we're doing. Yes, dear listener, you are the void.
And the void is very comforting.
Okay, so I think we've exhausted the fountain of memes that... Actually, no, I take that back. We have not exhausted the fountain of memes that is Jaden Smith and Donald Trump. But I think we've done enough for one episode. Please dig us out of the hole.
I don't know if I can do that, but I'm going to move from one topic we know very little about, i.e. politics, to another topic I know very little about, and that's history, because, I know that's broad, just all of history, it's great.
History, yeah.
So this week I read an article about how the Stegosaurus and the T-Rex never existed at the same time. So little Steven Stegosaurus had been extinct for about 80 million years before Le Grand Fromage, the T-9000 Rex, came onto the scene, which completely shattered my naive view of the dinosaurs, because in my mind they were just in the world's growliest sitcom before getting cancelled by the commissioning editor's Meteor. I just sort of imagined it more like a cartoon where all the dinosaurs play along, right? But B, it made me think about the way we look at history, and particularly in school, we learn about time periods almost as sort of individual pieces in a giant jigsaw of the past, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like obviously history is continuum and things overlap, but our school, for example, you do Romans, Tudors, and the invention of the Yorkshire pudding, the three main historical points in Britain. You don't really get a sense of what was happening concurrently, if you know what I mean. Obviously, I'm not the first person to wonder about this, so for this topic, I relied on a Reddit thread where they asked what historical events happened at the same time, and most people don't think of overlapping, so I thought I'd mention a few of the ones I found interesting. Jack the Ripper was still on the loose when Nintendo was founded.
But I do understand that one because Nintendo started off making playing cards before video games.
So they were founded in 1889 as, like you say, a card manufacturer. You know, the very first Paper Mario. And at that point, Jack the Ripper was still on the loose. He hadn't murdered anyone since the year before, but he hadn't been caught. And there had been several crimes since then that people thought might have been him. So, you know, keeping it light, as always.
As always.
How about this one? The same year that Star Wars A New Hope came out, which was, because seeing as you're a film buff.
1977.
Exactly. That was the same year that the last execution by guillotine happened in France.
Oh, wow. Presumably it wasn't a member of the royal family. It got over
all the cast of the French Star Wars.
No.
Guerre de Toile, if my schoolboy French is still as bad as it was, which it clearly is. So if it was a public execution, one could arguably go from watching that to seeing, you know, the first showing of the lightsaber.
It'd be like, imagine how much easier it'd be to chop heads off with that thing.
Yeah, just getting ideas. Guys, we don't need the guillotine anymore. Orville Wright, inventor of, along with his brother, inventor of manned flight and the first ever host of the Right Stuff. He was still alive when the US dropped the nuclear bombs on Japan in 1945. So you've gone from inventing something to try and get places more quickly to seeing that invention become the thing that destroys humanity, potentially. It'd be like us starting this podcast and finding out that it gets beamed into space, and by the end of our lives, aliens find it and decide it's so appalling that it brings about our destruction. Oxford University existed for centuries before the founding of the Aztec Empire.
Oh, wow. Go on. Are there any dates of that one?
Yeah, so Oxford as a university, well, it wasn't technically a university, but teaching in some forms has been going on there continuously since 1096, when English students were banned from attending the University of Paris. So they set up Oxford, and the Aztec Empire it's generally agreed started in 1428. So that's at least sort of between 300 and 400 years.
Yeah, wow, I didn't know that.
of Oxford learning, and some of the university dons have been there ever since. Apparently, says he bitterly having failed to get into Oxford. And finally, I've got one more for you. Between the Roman and the Ottoman empires, that their existence spans the time between Jesus Horatio Christ and Babe Ruth.
Wait, hold on, I don't get that one.
So between, if you count up all the time between, when the Roman Empire was in place, and the Ottoman Empire was in place, that covers the time between Jesus being alive and Babe Ruth being alive.
Wow.
The two twin sides of humanity.
Yeah, the two most important people in human history. The thing with that one, though, is the Roman Empire is... I think people often underestimate just how long it lasted. Because, if you take it all depends what you define as an empire. Because obviously a lot of people decide it is when you have an actual emperor. But since the Romans were basically a bunch of people... not exactly democratically, but kind of, invading neighbours. And then they switched from that system to slightly less democratically elected leaders ruling a country that invaded neighbours, so they didn't really make much distinction. You're going from about 500-ish BC all the way through to the fall of the West in the 400s AD. And then the Eastern Empire went all the way through to 1500. So you got a solid 2,000 years of unbroken political entity, which is mad.
Yeah, and compared to the Lib Dems anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Consider the British Empire lasted 200 years maybe. It depends when you count it. It only really sort of started getting going, I suppose, after settling in the Americas. So that was what...
By getting going, do you mean waging genocide all around the world?
Yeah, basically. Instead of just, doing the usual thing, which was just fucking up Ireland, when they started casting their eyes further afield for more places to fuck, they started going...
Can we kill someone else other than the Dutch, please?
Yeah. I do have a fact that's sort of on the same topic, I suppose, as your ones, slightly different, but there is a greater period of time between the pyramids being built and Cleopatra's lifetime than there was between Cleopatra's lifetime and Neil Armstrong landing on the moon.
Wow. And at the time that the Great Pyramids were being built, there were still woolly mammoths roaming the earth.
Yes, I think so. I think I read that somewhere. Presumably not in the same place, because, the desert seems like a horrible place to be a woolly mammoth. I would just get hot.
Yeah, but you could shave it. You could shave a mammoth.
Yeah, then it's not a woolly mammoth.
That's true.
Different.
Then, then it's just like a pigeon, basically.
You're going on about how, there's 80 million years between Stegosaurus and T-Rex?
Yeah.
Just to sort of get an idea of how... incomprehensibly long these timescales are. If you compressed Earth's, 4.3 billion years of history into 1 year, January the 1st is when Earth, started, and midnight at December 31st is right this second. Humanity showed up at 11:55. Oh, sorry. Humanity showed up at about 11 o'clock, as in humans as apes and, distinct from apes. 11:55 is when human civilization actually sort of began.
But because obviously that's New Year's Eve. That's when you want to turn up, because there's so much hype around the party. The people who get there at 7, they're just wasting so much time. They're watching the fireworks. Not the fireworks yet, but they're watching
Jewel Holland's Hootenanny.
They're watching John Legend sulk next to a piano.
Shows you how wild my New Year's Eve sound. That's my go-to thing.
Yeah, I remember we must have been, 15 or 16, and you were around at mine, and we had a few other friends. New Year's Eve, we thought we'd, stay up to midnight and watching the New Year, and we missed it. We were just talking, and then we looked up, and it was 12:15. We went, oh well, back to Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I feel like we had our priorities right.
Yeah, it's the same tactics we did with before every exam.
Oh, that got me through. Mortal Kombat got me through my GCSEs and A-levels.
Yeah, we'd go around, play Mortal Kombat, and then go, should probably go do our exams.
Yes.
And we'd always have
There's no point worrying about
thumb
exams.
war before we went in.
Good luck, thumb war.
Good luck, thumb war. It turned out all right. You know, we both did well in exams. We went on to uni, and I continued to have legs. So
yes, you did.
All successes and
exactly.
But you know, stocking shelves is still fun.
I feel like every one of these episodes just, you know, things go well for a bit and then all of a sudden we just break down. The existential terror just gets to us. Oh, God. What are we doing?
For a while we can talk about dinosaurs and idiots on Twitter, and then I forget my life, and then it all comes credit and go, oh yeah, I'm still me in this body, living this life that never seems to end or get better. So, Chris, what's your next topic?
What's the furthest you've ever gone to not admit that you've made a mistake? Like, you know, have you ever hidden something and been like, nope, definitely wasn't me?
When I was 12, I stole a bottle of vodka from somewhere else in the house, and I got caught with it, and I tried to... The best excuse I came up with was, oh no, I just wanted a drink of water, and I couldn't find any glasses, so I had to steal this bottle, and I emptied it out, washed it out, and had a bottle of water. But obviously, it still smells. Smells of
40% alcohol.
Yeah, and I'm just very conveniently sick. That makes my life sound so bleak. And it was. Why do you ask?
Well, on a less depressing topic, a mother in Sweden got a tattoo of her child's name, as many parents do. Her kid is called Kevin, because apparently he was born 50 years ago. But the tattoo said Kelvin. The logical thing would be to, get the tattoo fixed, changed, or whatever. But,
or change the name of the kid.
Well, yes, that's her logic. She legally changed her kid's name from Kevin to Kelvin.
I'm with her on that one.
How is that the easiest option?
Because a tattoo is permanent, like a name.
Oh, that was dark.
Well, no, the kid isn't. Like, it depends how old the kid was when she had the name
I think
changed.
She was 6 years
if it's
old.
like days old,
6 years old, I believe.
that's
5.
fine. They don't care.
They might. Also, Kelvin, you're naming them after a temperature scale.
Yeah, so they're either gonna have a scientific sort of life, because obviously that's how names work. Because you and I are both called Chris, and we've turned out the most religious of all Christians.
Yeah, that's true, actually. I do love...
If there is one constant in this life, it is nominative determinism.
Yeah, I know what that means.
It means, like, your name is somehow linked to what you do. So if you're... So you know how, like, surnames came about because of jobs?
Okay.
So, like, if you're called Baker, then it means that you probably don't do the Atkins diet. It's just the idea that your name plays a part in what you go on to be. So my surname, for example, is a word for the dregs you get at the bottom of wine, which does link in to the anecdote I told earlier as a 12-year-old alcoholic.
There was actually a thing I read about that, Freakonomics, I think it was. It included a story of a guy who named his kids Winner and Loser, but Loser went on to have a much more successful life.
I guess because it's sort of doing the bully's work for them. If he'd been called Schmoozer, then you go, haha, your name sounds like Loser.
Yeah.
If you go, your name's Loser, then you need more inventive bullies. But no, the original story, I'm absolutely with the woman on this one.
Okay.
First of all, I don't foresee me having kids anytime soon. You've got to, as I understand it, lay with woman before that happens, and that's not really an option. But, I mean, I'm even less likely to tattoo the name of... I've got a bad memory, but I can remember one name per kid, I think, without having them indelibly marked. Where on her did she have the tattoo done?
On her forearm. so she can check it easily.
I mean, maybe an alternative could have been just above that in a nice cursive script, just to have my son's name is not.
Yeah, see, that would have worked.
That would have been fine. Or underneath it, it would be a stupid name to call someone.
Yeah. The thing with names, though, because I said, Kevin is obviously a normal, incredibly dull name. Apologies to any Kevins out there. But the thing with, we often laugh at weird names. When celebrities give their kids weird names, or it's like, oh, why would you not give somebody an incredibly boring name like Chris? But the thing is, since names are supposed to be like a unique identifier, like weird names actually make far more sense than, the approved list of usually biblical names that we go with. Because I don't know about you, but I literally, if somebody yells Chris, I just ignore them at this stage. Because there were always several Chris's in any given room. That'd be a bit weird. But,
when you're alone at night.
Yeah. But, if somebody, shouts Chris in the street or something, there's a fair chance there's a completely different Chris also on the street that they're actually yelling at.
I think particularly our age, because it was the most popular name the year we were born.
Mm-hmm.
In my class at school, I think there were 7 Chris's,
yep.
and you weren't even one of them. You were in another class that had 4 or 5 other Chris's. I've got 2 cousins similarly aged called Chris, so we couldn't even limit it to one a family,
I do love that, Fury Road, when it came out, and it got all the accolades of being, it's talked about like a serious film rather than just an action film and all that, even though the characters just have like gloriously insane names. Like, what is it? Immortan Joe. What is it? Splendid Angarad. And stuff like that. It's just like genuine. Like, I don't know how George Miller came up with the names, but he must have just like taken just random words and just shoved them in a blender and be like, boom, here we go. Oscars await.
That's clearly where we're going wrong with our creative adventures. All our characters have been called like Ian and Dan and
Kevin.
Kevin.
We'll change Kevin to Kelvin and we'll be good.
Yeah, Kelvin, Slaughter Blunderbuss.
Mm-hmm.
And then Oscars. Please.
Okay, so I think that's enough about names. Over to you.
I'm going to try and be less negative this time, or at least that was my intention, and then I looked at my notes and realised what my second topic was. So starting next week, I'm going to be more positive. Chris, I don't know if you're like me in that sometimes you worry about what you've done with your life. I've got very few accomplishments to my name. I can make a decent carbonara.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's a skill I only learned recently.
Yeah, the trick is to just make a carbonara. It's pretty easy, actually.
To remember the spaghetti.
Yeah, otherwise it's just eggs, I guess. Eggs and cheese. So I can make a decent carbonara. I know the lyrics to over 100 Eel songs. I've been to both Lincoln and Leeds. So
have you ever been to Southampton and Scunthorpe, though?
I have not.
No Tiny Temper, then. I've been to Southampton, but I've never been to Scunthorpe.
Is that you talking, or are you quoting?
Well, I'm quoting Tiny Temper, but it also applies to my life as well. And it's deep lyrics like that, which is why he's so famous.
Yes, he is. And I...
Pop culture reference.
I don't even know if it's a film, if it's a person, if it's...
some kind of owl.
I mean, that would be a sort of a curveball to quote some kind of owl, but the fact that, I don't even know who Small Outrage is, it proves exactly that there's a lot I haven't done with my life.
Yes. Sorry to derail your list of accomplishments.
No, it's all just further proof that I have so much left to learn. And, sometimes late at night, you lie there worrying about your place in the world, and if you're ever going to get around to finishing that erotic novel about elephant-human hybrids, getting it on and getting it off in space. My second topic is a quote from Julius Caesar that proves that some of the most famous people throughout history, and this is a dude who's, got 2 months, that's a whole 6th of the calendar named after him, that they've worried about that very August and July.
Oh, August was Augustus.
Was that not his...
How's his hair?
I thought that was his imperator name.
No. Julius and then Augustus used to be Octavian.
I am an idiot.
No, we're learning. We're all on a learning journey.
You're right. Thank you for humbling me humbling me with your knowledge.
Well, for once,
See,
we want it to be vaguely accurate.
Yeah, vaguely for the first time so far. Actually, we'll introduce some facts into this. See, this is why I don't have any months named after me.
But you do have Christmas.
That's true, and my mass is vast. That was the most stupid thing I've ever said.
It all makes sense now. That's what it stands for. Sorry, carry on.
Oh,
I
God.
think there's a point to the story at some point.
I hope so, but in a long list of stupid things, that is the stupidest thing I've said so far. So, this is from Plutarch's historical accounts of Caesar. When Caesar read of Alexander the Great's life, he burst into tears. His friends were surprised and asked him the reason of it. "Do you think," said he, "I have not just cause to weep when I considered that Alexander at my age had conquered so many nations, and I have all this time done nothing that is memorable?" And I found that strangely uplifting, that even these people who accomplished historically important things, if morally dubious things, can still feel that insecure about not having accomplished what they perhaps dreamed of, that we can all just accept that that every single person has unfinished business with their ambitions. So hooray, everyone's insecure, but also hooray, there's still time to crush a democracy and become dictator for life.
Yes.
And then this is where you tell me that wasn't him, it was actually
another
Caesar.
That was Julius.
The same dude that invented the salad.
The trick is to use lots of knives.
So yeah, so I don't know if either you, Chris, or you, the listener, feel that...
Oh, well, I've actually been... I don't actually celebrate my birthday for a couple of reasons. Really, one, it always thought, well, obviously it doesn't now, but when we were younger, it fell during the middle of exams every year, which meant nobody actually wanted to do anything because everyone was too busy. At least that's the excuse they gave me. And
you bought it every year.
Yes. But the second reason is because every year I always end up looking at what famous people had done by my age and getting wildly depressed. Is when you look at and some, it doesn't even have to be good accomplishments. Like it can, like you say, be incredibly morally dubious, but at least they've done something. They've made a mark of some description. I mean, this was a couple of years now, but by the time he was my age, Aaron Hernandez had grown up, become an NFL player, played in a Super Bowl, murdered somebody, gone to prison, joined the Bloods, and then killed himself. It's morally dubious, but he packed a lot into those 25 years or so. And I'm like,
now, at that age, you had also grown up. There is still time
and
to go on,
on a rampage. I'd rather not. He's not exactly a hero, but he's packed some stuff into there. Mike Tyson, world champion boxing by 20. Who else? Like Julius said, Alexander the Great. By the time he was my age, he was already about. I think he'd got through to. Don't know if he got as far as Afghanistan yet, but he's definitely in Persia. Julius Caesar himself, he once got, when he was young, he actually got kidnapped by pirates. Somehow used his ridiculous charisma to order the pirates about, demanded they increase his ransom because what they asked for was insultingly low, and then apparently told them that he'd come back and murder them all anyway. And then when he got released, he did go get a fleet together and come back and murder them all.
Apparently he sort of laughed and joked "Oh God, when this all blows over, I'm going to crucify you." And that's what he did. Yeah. Came back and went, "Guys, I wasn't shitting around. Don't you dare ever try and sell me for as low as 20 denarii or whatever it was. I'm a 50 denarii." They probably didn't use the denarii by then. It was probably an earlier currency.
Sister,
You're going to cure that with cranberry juice, I think.
Careening towards 30. You just start going, right, well, that's every single player in the Premier League. Just about every band in existence. 80% of film stars. And it's all younger than me. Or, their careers started and they had their big hit or whatever. Well, younger than me. I do not deal well with aging.
No, I mean, I know I'm not the right person to talk you down from the ledge, given that I reserved our spot on the ledge in the first place. I mean, it is uniquely depressing that every year there's a new crop of anywhere between 16 and 19-year-old pop stars that become, multi-millionaires and the best-selling people ever, with some irritating pop song that inexplicably is streamed a billion times, and you go, who is this sperm with a fringe? And why are they in a band called Sperm with a Fringe? That is a terrible name. Well, at least I'm not alone in thinking, in worrying about. I suppose everyone worries about this sort of thing. Next year. Okay, all right, next year's not going to be our year, and then you die. But there are plenty of examples of people who accomplished great. Who started later in life. I think Harrison Ford was quite old when he started acting.
Yeah.
Was he? You're more likely to know.
He was. I don't know his
Rickman.
Alan Rickman was
50 before he got cast.
Yeah, Alan Rickman was.
Or 40, 40s,
40s, yeah. Harrison Ford, I think, had tried to be an actor, given up, become a carpenter, but I think he became a set set designer carpenter, so it's still sort of in film-ish. And then he got his big break because he was fitting sets, I think, for George Lucas, and George Lucas asked him to read some lines during auditions for the other actors, and he ended up being like, you know what, you're pretty good at this.
And also looked like a young Harrison Ford.
He did.
Which helps.
Han Solo was almost played by Kurt Russell, who is the greatest actor of all time. Please tell me you know who Kurt Russell is.
I know the name.
Oh,
I could not tell you one.
He has a glorious mullet.
Yet you say that like it's a good thing, because I consider the mullet as a war crime.
It's the greatest hairstyle in history. It's business at the front and party at the back. What more do you want?
It is 360 degrees of abhorrence. In my room 101, there would only be a giant mullet.
Like as in the fish.
And tuna.
I've never seen him with cornrows or a mohawk, but he can. When he plays cowboys and old timey things, he does grow an absolutely glorious, that
handlebar moustache.
Yeah, well, you know that one where it's like you got like the proper sideburns, then the handlebar moustache, like sort of all like into one glorious frontier beard.
Yeah, the only like good preset beard in Fallout,
yes,
basically.
Exactly. Kurt Russell would make an excellent American Civil War general.
Facial
hair-wise,
speaking.
yeah. I have no idea about his tactics.
Or his politics.
Yeah. But, facial hair-wise, he'd be there.
Do you think that's how they used to decide it?
Honestly, I think we should just do every single episode about Kurt Russell.
I don't know who he is.
I'll just find more facts about him. I'll share one with you each week.
Okay. I can't believe this is going to be a regular feature.
Don't hold me to that. I'll forget by next week.
No. I'm going to remind you, next week, you're going to have your two main topics, which you can be at anything, and I won't know what they're going to be.
But I think you do now.
No, I would like a bonus mini Kurt Russell topic, please.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I could probably do that.
And you're going to do one a week. And
until the heat death of the universe.
No, if you can find something genuinely interesting about Kurt Russell every week until episode 20, then the next time we meet up, I will buy you a gift. That was so vague. I'll buy dinner next time we meet.
Okay. Right, I'll try.
Listeners, as you as my silent witnesses, was he in Silent Witness?
Not that I'm aware of.
Right. Okay. My homework for this week is to Google Kurt Russell. Was he in Spartacus?
It's in the original. Not the original as in 108 BC, but the original film.
I guess. I don't know where I plucked that from.
No, that was Kirk Douglas. Michael Douglas's dad. Did I just say two names that you don't know? I swear your knowledge of old films used to be better than this. You never you've never been a fan of Marvel films or whatever, but that's why we have many conversations about classic films.
What you didn't realise is I was silent through all of them. Or I'd go, do you fancy a brew? And you just carry on talking.
About Kurt Russell's glorious facial hair.
Yeah, it has been the hairy glue of our friendship. That is a phrase I'm not comfortable with. It came out of my mouth and I thought, you know what? I do not feel good saying that.
Just to wrap it back on topic, Kurt Russell was not a late starter because he was actually he began as a Disney star, I think.
You just squandered one of your bonus Kurt Russell facts.
Yeah, no,
You're not
but
doing
I
yourself
wanted to
any
keep
favours
I
here.
wanted to keep it on topic. That was it. I wanted
Right,
to
well,
loop
listeners,
it back in.
I hope you've enjoyed the Kurt Russell special, and all future episodes will be the Kurt Russell special. When we started this podcast, I thought it was going to be a light-hearted, internet show and tell. Turns out, by episode 7, we've found our true calling, and I am excluded from that calling.
Yeah, no, I like how, when we did come up with, we said we'd do this. We sort of said no religion, no politics. I managed to break both of those. Cooking with grief would be an ironic title because there'd be no cooking or grief, but you're constantly on the verge of a mental breakdown. And we try and be interested in share knowledge and facts, and all we've come up with is that I know a disturbing amount about Kurt Russell.
Oh, this has been a complete shambles. What are we doing? Why are we doing this? Oh, who's even listening to this? Help us. Make us stop.
Well, listeners, for those betting on who's going to have the first proper mental breakdown first, who would have thought it'd be the sane Chris?
Oh, I'm back.
Let's end this.
I don't want to.
We've clearly both gone insane.
Alright, are we hitting stop?
Oh, right. Gathered our thoughts slightly. So that was the last of the 4 topics we had for you this week. And as ever, we, investigated them with a journalistic rigour unmatched by any other publication and delved deep into the topics that we are so famously studious of.
I feel like now would be a good time to mention that I haven't slept properly for about 4 days.
That could explain it. You might have mentioned that before we sat down to record, but I would have said, look, get a power snooze, and then let's gather our thoughts before you open the crazy Kurt Russell can of worms and gorge yourself silly on those worms. But anyway, thank you for listening to this, and hopefully you'll listen to the next one as well. It's been fun. So I've been Chris.
I've also been Chris.
And neither of us have been Kurt Russell.
Sorry, it's got really weird. Shall we say goodbye?
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, God. Thank you for listening to this episode of Cooking with Grief. If you enjoyed it, make sure to recommend it to a friend. And if you hated it, then please recommend it to your worst enemy. If you'd like to get in touch, you can email us cookingwithgrief@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter. That's @cookingwithgrief, but no G on cooking, because we're cool. It'd be great if you subscribe to our channel, that way you'll never miss a new episode. And we'd love to get your feedback, so please leave a comment below telling us all about the things we got wrong. Thank you, Internet. We welcome your indifference and or vitriol.